You know, I feel like singing that. In the old days, in the 70s, whenever the game on Monday night got out of control, Don Meredith sang Turn Out the Lights, okay? So I don't want to sing Turn Out the Lights. It's kind of a bittersweet time to be talking to Keith Gaddie. If you look at the nameplate under there, if Nick will put that up one more time, it's Keith Gaddie, and underneath it, it says TCU political scientist. So it's the worst kept secret now that OU's Keith Gaddie via Georgia, where they're celebrating 2 football championships. But you've been there for OU football championships. You're off to Texas, to TCU. So help us understand, first off, what you're doing at TCU.
Okay. TCU recruited me into an endowed chair, which a gift was given to the university to create a professorship. And so there's a multi-million-dollar gift, and the interest on that gift pays my salary and pays for me to do research and to work with students. And it's called the Hoffman Family Chair in the American Ideal. A donor named Al Hoffman, who had been George W. Bush's campaign chairman in 2000, big land developer out of Florida, he's interested in centered and civil politics. He likes positive and civil discourse, so he gave this gift to recruit somebody who could teach in that perspective, write from that perspective, and bring that to the university as well. And they reached out and recruited me, and I said no twice, and then the third time they called, I said, okay, I'll come take a look.
Okay, so you've been on Hot Seat many times. We've been friends for many years. You are Oklahoma's premier political scientist. People come to you all the time. You've been involved in all kinds of aspects, from legal to campaigns. And now that you've retired from the University of Oklahoma, and fortunately, by the way, the best Gaddie is still at the University of Oklahoma. Kim is not going south. So help us understand, a lot of your students, including John Eccles, who you see on Sundays here. John and I were talking when you came into the studio, and it was basically, I want to ask my professor, is American democracy going to survive what's going on?
It better. It better. We fight over what is democracy. A lot of ways to define it. But it has to start with a fundamental assumption. A political scientist from out in West Texas named V.O. Key said this years ago, he ended up at Harvard, that one of the main assumptions we have to make is that we will count the votes as cast and that the losers will accept the result and not shoot each other. And so right now we're right at the cusp of it not working because losers are not accepting fair vote counts and they're trying to shoot each other. There's a lot of violence out there. It comes from one particular direction in our politics. It comes from the right wing. This both sidesism is nonsense. The violence that threatens the stability of the institution comes from the far right wing in the United States. They can't accept an election result other than the one that they want. And part of playing the game, whether it's politics or sports or anything, part of calling the game is accepting the count, continuing to play the game, and then trying to come back and win. Otherwise, it's just mob rule. And democracy shouldn't be mob rule. That's why we have institutions.
You mentioned that as part of what you're doing out there is civil politics down at TCU.
Yeah.
And you're staying here in Oklahoma, but let's talk about Oklahoma for just a moment. You understand Florida and Georgia. You've written extensively on these aspects of it, but you've watched Oklahoma up close. Now you're going to be working south of the Red River. What sort of experiences do we take away at this particular time in history in Oklahoma about where we're headed here?
See, I actually think Oklahoma, I was reflecting on this coming in this morning. I think Oklahoma actually may be in good shape. And here's the thing, now that I'm retired from OU, I can say, if we can survive this governor and his inability to understand how institutions work and how a representative democracy works, how treaties work, how legislation works, we'll be fine. And we are going to survive because the legislature gets it. The legislature finally gets it, that they came to make policy. You listen to these men talking this morning, they get it. And they know how to govern, and they've come to govern. So we've survived the knucklehead stuff. But now it's about getting people in the executive branch who also understand that governing is not being a CEO standing up saying, do this, do that, and I'm going to ignore the law. No, it doesn't work that way. And this governor needs to learn that. He's being taught this lesson the hard way. And he's turned himself into a lame duck for the last 2 years of his term. Legislature's shown they will repeatedly override him in the name of good government.
There's quite a few of the folks at the legislature that studied under Keith Gaddie at the University of Oklahoma. In terms of basically the political class that's up and coming, and they're coming fast and they're very young, are you optimistic about it?
I'm feeling better about it. I'm feeling better about it. And, you know, it's fun for me if I look at the folks that are at the top now. I just had the privilege to open the door one day, and there they were, right? I opened the door one day, and here's John Eccles or Greg Treat or, you know, Forrest Bennett, if you want to go to the other side of the aisle. I think I've had something like 40 lawmakers in my classes over the years. They get it, and they know. And they came to govern, and they're capable of doing most anything. But they came to govern, and they have respect for institutions. Not that they should stay the same, but they respect that there's a process you follow to change things. And yeah, you need to exert pressure on the outside, but I am feeling better about what's coming up. I think these kids are a lot more thoughtful. I think that the folks coming up on the left have got a deeper appreciation of markets and the need for local government. I think the folks on the right are getting past the strong inflection of evangelicism that had come into Republican politics for a while and then spawned this other thing off there on the right that we're dealing with Trumpism. So the next generation, I'm feeling good looking forward. What I fear for is the folks that don't get to come to college, that don't make their way into governing, right? That's the problem. And if they're feeling disfranchised, they don't feel like they've got any skin in the game, it's mighty tough for us to think that they're going to have confidence in the process. And that's over half of young Oklahomans right now.
I've said this repeatedly, half jokingly, that it's safer to talk about religion and politics at the dinner table now than the state of education in the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Your thoughts about where we're headed there structurally, as well as what the future may hold, 10, 20 years down the road?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? There seems to be an effort underway to take away a thing that was supposed to be one of the great conservative hallmarks, right? Local control of local schools. That's under assault from the State Department of Education due to the current incumbent, right? And that current incumbent has got lots of problems, lots of challenges. But our problem in education is we're still not paying people well. We're trying to invest in schools better. We are experimenting with things that can work in the charter space, for example. Can't work everywhere, but it can work in select instances. But what we're not doing is we're not making the general investment that makes us competitive. At the universities, we've got investments, and this is where I'll applaud the governor, investments in research, right? We're seeing it up in Tulsa, we're seeing it down in Norman, we're seeing it at Health Science Center. That's going well. We've got to reorganize the regional college system. We've got to reorganize the junior college system. We've got to figure out how you can fuse junior colleges and career tech into one institution, because they're addressing the same constituencies, which are people that don't need a four-year degree, technical learners and non-traditional learners. We've got to think about that. We have to think about how to have more AP rather than less. We have to figure out how to ease that transition to college. We've got to figure out how to make college cheaper. In the state of Georgia, 36% of higher education's budgets come from the legislature. In Oklahoma, it's 9%. That's all you need to know. We're trying to chase Atlanta, we're trying to chase Austin, and we can't keep up. We've got to make the investment.
There's no way to talk about higher education without talking about sports.
Yeah.
Okay. There was, interestingly, at the end of the session, a bill dealing with these NILs, college athletes being paid through whatever an NIL is. I totally don't understand it. OU is leaving to go to the SEC. O-State's staying here. You're watching this. You know the president at OU has to deal with these sorts of issues. For folks who are interested in college sports and student athletes, where are we headed with that?
I'll tell you, that's one place where I think we're doing well, in particular. But there's a lot of uncertainty out there. NIL means name, image, likeness, okay? And this allows a student athlete to basically receive compensation for the use of their name, their image, or their likeness in advertising, for example. And this can entail something as simple as, I endorse Cane's chicken fingers and I get free Cane's, right? Or these can be seven-figure deals. It just depends. And we are in a very interesting situation where the courts have made clear that students have to be able to take advantage of this name, image, likeness, and the ability to, and the economic opportunities that those afford. The question is, at what point do we get into athlete compensation directly, and how does that happen?
And when do we do that?
That's a very good question. It's coming. I mean, the issue is coming. It's part of the conversations of the NCAA. It's the conversation in all the conferences. The conversation is doubtlessly happening at OU. How do you prepare for that day? And college athletics are going to get expensive. It'll start with the revenue sports, but it may not be just the revenue sports. I mean, yeah. NIL money, it probably takes you $15 million to put a football game on the field now with NIL money. It's just the economics are new and they're different. The ability of players to move from school to school is easier than it used to be through the transfer portal. We've got the most free market that ever existed for athletic competition in North America right now. Right now, I mean, this makes what happened with free agency in baseball in the 1970s look like a penny ante. This is a game changer, and it irrevocably and fundamentally changes college athletics, because if it costs you more to keep football, that's money you're not spending anywhere else. And that opens up a can of worms of the debate of having young black men playing football subsidizing white kids playing tennis and golf. It gets really, really mixed up real quick. And it makes for a lot of hard conversations. We've got to get it right.
You're going to TCU now. Your family's staying in Oklahoma. Let me ask you a couple of questions to close with. Georgia, TCU, and OU, you're playing football. Who are you rooting for?
Well, remember what I told you years ago when Georgia played OU in the Rose Bowl. There is no obligation to root for one's paycheck.
Okay. All right. Got that. All right. So what is the future of Keith Gaddie as you go to Texas? And are you going to still come back and see us?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's, Kim and I were keeping the house here. So the odds are if you're on the Heartland Flyer on a Monday morning, you'll probably see me on the train, or I'll pass you on the highway headed south. Kim and I've got a little place in downtown Fort Worth. Wednesday evening I come home and I'm home in time for dinner. That's the one neat thing about faculty life is you can do a lot of the job remotely. But so I'm in Texas when I need to teach. I'm in Texas to deal with donors. I'm in Texas to speak to the public down there. But home's up here.
We wish you the best of luck. It's bittersweet, but we know you're not going away far. And like you said, Kim is staying, so we still have the best Gaddie in Oklahoma.
Well, she'll be happy to hear that because I agree with you.
Okay. Keith Gaddie, now at TCU.
Yes, sir.
As of 2 days ago, and we're really glad to see you and wish you the best of luck and look forward to seeing you again.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks for watching Hot Seat. See this again at news9.com/Your Vote Counts, where you can see the whole interview. Be sure and follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Threads, and Facebook at Mitchell Talks.